In terms of your community and how you are represented, could you see anyone online that had gone through what you had?
I didn't know where to look. I didn't see anybody who looked like me. Automatically, I felt like I can't relate. I can't ask people questions about like, what do I do when it comes to praying? And then especially because I like wear hijab as well, so I'm visibly Muslim too, and I was kind of looking for that kind of community.
Navigating this space must be really difficult.
There's been periods when I have been able to fast, so it's a really important month for Muslims. And when you can't fast, which is like the integral part of it, like you do feel the loss of that, and I've definitely felt that as well.
One question that a lot of followers will be wanting us to ask you is about clothing and how you dress, especially how you navigated that with 2 Stoma bags.
I've always had to think about what I wear and what suits my body shape, and then having a Stoma on top of that, it will be a new normal for you, but it will become normal. And just find your own community. If you don't see people in your real life who can relate to you, like that's the amazing part of social media.
Here we go then, mate. Episode 4.
Yes.
How are we feeling?
Pumped for this one.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. Who have we got on today?
We've got Omma on today.
And what are we going to be talking about?
And she is here to talk all about culture and community, which is something we haven't covered on the pod before. So this is going to be very important for a lot of people out there that are not seeing that representation. So we've got a lot to cover.
It's going to be so exciting. And like, you know, looking at her socials, she's done some incredible things. She's been to Chicago. She's got a book club going.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to have her on.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a good one.
Right, let's get her in.
Yes.
So welcome, everyone, to the 4th episode of Beyond the Pouch with Omar. Lovely to have you.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Right, before we get off with diving into your story, knowing much more about you and all the stuff we want to talk about, we're going to do some quick fire questions.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, so biggest myth about stomas that you want to have busted?
It's your fault that you have a stoma.
Interesting.
We haven't had that one.
No, that's really interesting.
We haven't had that one.
What's the most empowering moment you've had since having a stoma?
Maybe not a moment exactly, but just having a lot of people contact me, message me for advice, whether it's like cultural advice or religious advice. That's been really empowering.
Oh, love that. I love that. What's one word you'd have to describe your relationship with your body right now?
It's complicated.
Fair. And a song or a quote that always lifts your mood?
Allah or God doesn't burden a soul more than it can bear.
Wow.
Okay.
That's lovely. Oh, fantastic.
Already, there are loads of things
I
that
know.
we need to ask
it's
you.
going to be awesome.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming from London today. We are, obviously you're here because you have a stoma, but there's so much more to you than that we're going to get into. But firstly, how did you come to have one? Tell us all about it.
So I was about 21 maybe when I first started showing symptoms, but didn't realise I was showing symptoms. And then I went through the process of being diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And then within less than a year of being diagnosed, I had a spontaneous perforation after undergoing an examination under anaesthetic.
Wow.
And I needed emergency surgery.
Oh,
and I had a colostomy. And initially they told me it would be temporary for 6 months just while my gut healed. But it just never ended up healing. Like I never went into remission, and eventually I had a proctectomy, so now the colostomy was permanent. And then a year ago I had a obstruction and they needed to remove my bowel completely, and now I have a permanent ileostomy. So I've kind of been on both sides of the stoma. So I've had both kinds of stomas.
What a unique position to be in.
Yeah.
So how much bowel do you have left? Do you know?
I don't have any of my large anymore, and I actually don't know. I think because, again, my obstruction was emergency surgery that I didn't even ask.
And I doubt they got a measuring tape out and found out to tell you after.
What caused the obstruction?
Gosh.
Was it just
No idea. And
really?
I think that's what I found really difficult to come to terms with, because at that point I felt like I was quite healthy. I was in remission. I had started working out. I felt quite well in myself. And then it just hit me all of a sudden. I went to an appointment, and then on the way back, I just started feeling like crampy and in pain. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought, okay, maybe I've eaten something or it's Crohn's. It's just Crohn's pains. And then it just progressively got worse. I started vomiting. And then I just knew at that point that this isn't normal. I've kind of felt this pain before. And it reminded me of when my bowel first perforated. And that sort of level of pain. And then I just went straight to A&E. And I remember like it was agony just to walk the few steps to A&E. And as soon as I got in, I was just like, yeah, this is the symptoms. And she was like, okay, take a seat. And I was like, I need a sick bowl. And then I was just like vomiting into the bowl. Then they tried to do the whole, you know, when they put the tube down.
The NG tubes.
Yeah, the NG tube. It's the worst. I hate the NG
Swallow some
tube.
water. That's not going to help. It's not going to help.
Do you know what actually did help, which I asked the nurse to do? I was like, can you numb my throat? And then she was just like, yeah. So guys, if you ever need an NG tube, get them to numb your throat. It makes a massive difference because it helps you like swallow it down. Yeah. Otherwise, I just kept gagging and it's horrendous.
That's honestly like the amount of people that...
You can buy that over the counter. Like I buy it for my kids if they've got a sore throat. Diphlam spray.
I thought you meant NG tube.
No. Well, I don't know if you can. I haven't tried.
Get that.
Oh gosh. Okay. So you have experienced all of that. So there is lots and lots to talk about. Now you're here to cover quite an important topic that isn't shared enough, is it? At all. So in terms of your community and how you are represented, could you see anyone online that had gone through what you had? That looked like you?
No, not at all. I think because I was diagnosed I think it's been about 14, 15 years now. And I remember the first time I went to like an IBD meetup in East London, and I went there and everybody was old and they were white. And that was really difficult for me because everyone was so friendly. They were really lovely, but automatically I felt like I can't relate. I can't ask people questions about like, what do I do when it comes to praying and how do I fast and, you know, those kind of issues and like with food and things like that. So I think I went once and then I never went back. And when I tried to look online as well, again, I didn't know where to look. I didn't see anybody who looked like me. And then especially because I like wear hijab as well, so I'm visibly Muslim too. And I was kind of looking for that kind of community. So because I do have really supportive family and friends, I decided that I would start sort of writing about it. And I started sort of blogging initially and then like posting on Instagram. I'm really inconsistent with it, but I'm great on DMs. So if you ever want to message me,
you are pretty fast. To be fair, we message everyone that comes on, and you were like, pew, pew.
My DMs are always open, but I just, I think I just have a sort of love-hate relationship with social media because there's always that pressure to like post and I just never know what to. I always feel really vain just posting pictures of myself.
So you look fabulous in them. So I say carry on. No, but that's so lovely that you are being what you needed.
Exactly.
Because it's got to start from somewhere, hasn't it?
Yeah, like I can't complain if I'm not willing to do something about it myself. So
and
I'm sure you're helping so many others as well that
I
are
hope
also
so.
in that space going, I want to see someone that you know that's been represented, etc.
Yeah, and it was the same with like literature when you'd be given sort of leaflets and stuff about like Crohn's, IBD or like stomas, and I just never ever saw anybody like me. So again, it was really hard for me to relate. And even when I'd see like pictures of stomas or scarring, it'd be these really neat little scars, really beautiful looking abdomens and really like still got their abs intact and everything. And I was like, mine is horrendous. You know, mine doesn't look like that at all. So like things like that really make more of a difference or an impact than I think they or companies or people realise.
And I suppose that also lent itself into the acceptance of it.
Exactly.
And how you feel about your body, because if you're not seeing something, you're going to feel like, well, what's wrong with me?
Exactly.
And that can snowball, can't it?
Definitely. And I think like normal is such a subjective word. Like normal means something different for everybody.
So true.
We have to normalise it so that we have a new normal for us, because life is so different now after having a stoma.
Yeah. And you speak on your socials a lot about grieving, which is a process. I think I don't know if you felt like that when you had yours, and I know
not as much.
Not everyone does, but a lot of people share that they do.
Yeah.
And how did you work through that then?
I think I'm still working through it, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be like a long-term thing, because there'll be good times and bad times. But I think it was because I got my stoma when I was in my early 20s. And then I had such a complicated history. Like, I never was in remission. And because of that, I felt like I lost my 20s. And you always hear, like, through like media and films and TV and stuff, that your 20s are the best years of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously that changes as you get older. Yeah,
but 20s were great.
And that's what it is. But it's like, that's what you kind of hear growing up. And for me, my 20s were in hospital a lot. I didn't get time to develop a career. I had just finished university when I got really sick. So because of that, I felt like I've had to grieve my 20s and even my 30s. I'm in my 30s now, but again, it's been really difficult. Like, when I see all my peers or my friends and they've got these illustrious careers and they're making great money and they're able to do things, and I haven't been able to do that. So I think that's where the grief comes into it, where I have to try and separate myself from the version of myself I thought I'd have growing up. Like, you have this kind of timeline in your head that, you know, you go to school, you go to university, you get a career, then you get to go and like travel and do these amazing things. And I haven't been able to do that. So I think that's where my grief comes into it, where I'm trying to learn to get over that and just accept life for what it is and try and make the best of it.
Yeah. And it's you know, there's no quick fix for that.
Exactly. It's going to be.
I think everyone's also, to your point, actually everyone's on their own timeline.
Yeah.
And like, your expectations are always going to be different. And I don't know if it's different from, you know, growing up and seeing everyone else do various things and what, you know, parents and families have done. But everyone's on their own timeline, especially with health. Like, literally, like, no one expects, even from your story, no one expects to have major surgery, like 2 major surgeries as well.
Yeah, I can't even count the number of surgeries I've had over the years. Like, I've had I think there was a point where I was having surgery every year. And
really?
Last year I had surgery. The year before that I had surgery as well. So I've had a lot. So because of that, like, that always kind of interrupts things, because you need like a long time to recover afterwards. And I think you just don't anticipate how much of a big deal surgery actually is. When you're having to have it so often, you're very flippant about the idea of having surgery.
Yeah, it's almost like you become institutionalized, isn't it?
Or like really immune to it. And then when I see some people, like, especially on TV, for example, and they're debating like, oh, I need to go under general anesthetic and I'm not sure and I don't want to, and, you know, there's a risk that you won't wake up. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I've had a general anesthetic so many times. I love general anesthetic. That's like the best part of having surgery.
That's hilarious.
Go to sleep now, guys.
Yes. That feeling where you're just floating. Like, it's just amazing.
How far do you get to count to then?
Oh, I really try and push myself to stay awake, but I probably get to like 7.
If that's quite good. 7? That's good. I think I've got to 3 or something.
I can't recall. I'm like, just knock me out, mate.
Oh, wow. That is impressive. We should start asking every guest that. What's your number? I mean, it means very different things in different situations, but for here, what's your number? That's a great segment. Can we do that?
When you have anaesthetic and counting down, just to clarify.
We need to
Number of
have
surgeries
that.
could work. Number of surgeries could work.
You've inspired that. Thank you. Thank you. Never forget you. That's amazing.
Well, one thing that you started to talk about at the start was when you said like one word to describe you and your body at the moment. You said it was complicated. So how are things in terms of that, like, body image for yourself, and like what's changed as well? Because you've had 2 very different types of stomas. So how's that been for you?
I think the reason it's complicated is because I think everybody probably has a really complicated relationship with their body. And I think especially as women, like, the body that we have when we're in our teens and in our 20s, and then you hit your 30s, and then, you know, all of a sudden, like, you can't just eat what you want, and now you have to think about your protein intake and, you know, fiber and, you know, making healthy, conscious decisions and stuff. So I think that's always going to add to it. But having had so many major surgeries, having stomas, like 2 different types of stoma bags, having like an abdomen full of scars. And I think what's kind of difficult for me is that I'm Muslim, so I cover up, and I can't just easily show my stoma. I can't show my scars to help empower other women. And then also when I see other people showing their scars, it doesn't look like mine either, because they have these really amazing stomachs and they're like flat and really lovely scarring. And I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful scar. That's so gorgeous.
Hey, I can get my belly out later for you if you want. You don't worry about that. Like it's that.
Obviously, the people who are confident enough to show their scars, often it's because they do have nice, neat scarring and things like that. And, you know, they're empowering people in their own way. But for me, it's different because as a Muslim, I can't do that. So sometimes I do feel excluded from the sort of body confidence.
Okay.
So from that sort of audience, I feel a bit excluded because I can't do that. So I'm having to show it in my own way. I think, especially as a Muslim woman, like the hidden disability is really, it means more to me because it really is hidden.
Of course.
For my own reasons as well. So, yeah.
And what type of questions and things are you asked in your DMs? Because there must be so many women in your position that are feeling the same. And what's the most common things?
So I think usually it's like, can I pray with my, like, how do I pray with my stoma bag? So before prayer, you have to do like ablution where you do like your cleaning ritual, for example. And usually it's like when you go to the bathroom, you wash and then you do the other parts to the ritual. But they're like, well, if I have a bag, my bag is constantly emptying. So does that ritual still count? Like, does it hold? And I had to go and find that information out for myself initially. So what I was told is you should pick the easier option. So you can make a fresh, so it's called wudu. You can make a fresh wudu every time you need to pray because we pray 5 times a day. So that one of the options is to make wudu every time you need to go and pray, or the easier thing to do is that count your stoma as an extension of your body. So even though it's constantly flowing, the only time you need to make that fresh wudu is if you were to empty your bag. So whether that's to open it to release gas, which is essentially like farting, and that's when someone would go and make a fresh wudu as well, or if you were to empty your bag. And because of that, like, I don't empty my bag that often, maybe more now that I have an ileostomy compared to a colostomy. So when I empty my bag, that's when I know that, okay, I need to do a fresh wudu now, or if it was to like pee as normal anyway. So because of that, like, people have asked me questions like that, like, how do I do that? They've asked me questions about fasting, like, are you able to fast? Like, what do you do with fasting?
Yeah, tell us more about that, because I also find that very interesting as well. Like, again, because, you know, forgive my ignorance, I don't know enough about this, and that's why we want to learn much more as well. So what would you do with those?
Fasting happens once a year. So the Islamic calendar is 10 days shorter than the Gregorian calendar. And because of that, each month shifts along approximately 10 days every year. So that's why Ramadan is going to be at different times. So sometimes you would have noticed, like a few years ago, it was in the summer. Now it's more sort of in the winter, springtime. And then eventually it will be in the winter because it's like shifting forward every 10 days. And there's been periods when I have been able to fast. So when the days have been shorter, it's like an 8-hour fast, which is just like waking up late, skipping breakfast, and then you can just open your fast at 4 o'clock, for example. So those days it's really easy. And then there's periods where it's like probably a 16, 17-hour fast. So it's like the summer months.
That's a massive difference.
And it's really hard. And so fasting is essential for Muslims. It's like one of the pillars. But not just that, like, it's such a spiritual point in time. Like, the sense of community you have when you're fasting, like everybody going to the mosque, it's like a real community event as well, because you go around to each other's houses, you open your fast together, you know, you're spending a lot in charity, you're trying to do the best that you can do and being the best version of yourself. So it's a really important month for Muslims. And when you can't fast, which is like the integral part of it, like, you do feel the loss of that. And I've definitely felt that as well. But I'm also really sensible in the sense that I will listen to the doctor's advice. I won't just go against it for my own wishes, because essentially I know that it can make me worse. So previously what I've done is I've done like on and off. So I'll fast one day, take a day off, fast the other day, or maybe I'll fast 2 days in a row, take one day off, see how I feel. So I'm really like in tune with my body, and I'll listen to it. Because I just think that, like, yeah, fasting is one of the pillars and it's important for you to do, but God also makes exemptions for people who are unwell. It's not there to make you more sick, and he understands, and he knows our struggle, and he knows how much harder it is. So you get rewarded just for your struggle, for just being unwell in itself, and that's huge. So we need to remember those kinds of things as well. Like he gives us an excuse, but he tells us not to fast if we're unwell. We're exempt from it. So I think a lot of people sort of kind of miss that out, or don't really consider that. They just think that, no, I have to push myself. But if you push yourself and it makes you more unwell, what's the point? You're then not able to complete your prayers on time. You're not able to do all the extra stuff that you could do instead. So that's what I kind of encourage people to do. Like, you know, take it slow, see if you can. If you can't manage, then there's other things you can do instead. You know, you can help make food, you can, you know, donate food, you can help out in community events. You can, like, we have the evening prayer and then we have an extra one at night, so you can go and volunteer at your mosque. Like, there's so many other things you can do. You can just listen to podcasts, you can do, like, read books, Islamic books if you want to. You can watch YouTube videos. There's so much you can do, you know? And you shouldn't feel bad about it, because, like, as I mentioned, one of the myths that I wanted to talk about as well is that IBD and stoma, it's not your fault that you have it.
100%.
And a lot of people do blame themselves, and it's like, oh, it's because I used to eat like this, or maybe I used to do this, and because I was stressed. It's not your fault. So I think we always need to just remind ourselves of that. And so, yeah, those are the kind of things that people ask me. They've even asked me, like, how do you dress, like, for Eid and stuff? Like, have you wore a sari before? And because obviously it's about your abdomen, and, you know, can you wear these kind of clothing? And I'm like, yeah, you can. Like, just wear what you feel good in and what you're comfortable in.
Can I ask, like, obviously navigating this space must be really difficult. Like, how did you sort of did you have a good support network that helped you go, right, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do? Because I'm wondering, like, if there's any other advice we can give people that maybe don't have that support network that are in your situation.
Yeah, to be honest, I just kind of figured it out as I was going along. Like, I do have a great support network in terms of I've got sisters. I've got 4 amazing sisters, and we're all really close. And I'm like second youngest. So I've got 3 older sisters, 1 younger sister, and they've always been really supportive. My parents, they're amazing, really supportive. But again, this was really new for them. They'd never heard of a stoma before. I'd never heard of a stoma before I was given one. So it's been a learning experience for them, but they've also always been really supportive of it as much as they can understand and do what they need to do, you know? So I think because I have that, it gives me the confidence to speak out and not feel embarrassed or ashamed, because, you know, you are essentially talking about your bowel movements. It's embarrassing for a lot of people who wants to talk about farting and pooping in general. And, you know, so I think they're the ones who've given me that confidence. And then I've had great friends as well who've always been really supportive. I've not had any friendship breakups over my...
That's really good.
Yeah,
That's
like...
really good.
Yeah, and I've got friends from, like, secondary school that I'm still really close with.
That's lovely.
So friends from, like, school, college, university, and then I didn't really have work friends because I didn't really get to work properly. But, you know, I've kept in touch with a lot of my friends, and I think it's just... I guess I've just picked really good friends throughout my life.
And so, I suppose if you think of generations that have come before you in your culture, I just wonder how they navigated all this, because you've got a very fresh, modern approach to things, and you're giving people, you know, that space to do what is right for you, do what feels best.
Yeah.
And I wonder, would that have been the approach in generations that came before you?
I think because my family's from Kashmir, and it's a really small, remote village. So I think only recently my mum told me that someone from the village actually has a stoma bag now. And I haven't been back in like 5 years. So I really want to go back, and then I want to speak to this person and just see how they are and how they're getting on and stuff. But it's really unheard of. Like, people don't know about what stomas are. And I think things like IBD or other reasons why you may have a stoma, like those are becoming more prevalent now. But back then, like maybe people had issues like that, but they didn't really have access to stoma bags.
Yeah, and would they have gone to the doctors, gone to show themselves and say, I'm struggling?
And in the village, like our closest hospital is like an hour and a half away. Now, like more are starting to open up and you're getting clinics and things. But, you know, if you needed major surgery back then, I don't think you'd even have gotten a stoma.
Wouldn't have got it. No.
Yeah, so...
Well, I guess there might also have been like maybe cultural pressures as well to be like, don't talk about that, or you shouldn't be doing those sorts of things.
Like when I first had my perforation and I was high on morphine, and they would come in and check on me. And at the time, they weren't 100% sure what was going on. They just said that you've got air in your abdomen. And they were just monitoring my bloods. And when my CRP went above 400, that's when they were like, okay, you need surgery. And I remember a stoma nurse coming in and saying to me like, okay, where do you want to have your stoma bag? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, there's a possibility you might need a stoma. Like, where do you want it? And I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't want it. I don't want to talk about it. And in my head, I just thought like, if I accept it, that means I'm going to get one. So if I'm just like adamant that I'm not having one, then I won't need surgery. So I was just like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to get the surgery. And then when they'd come in to check on me like every day, because I was sort of like that for about 4 or 5 days, where they were just monitoring me, my dad would say like, say you're feeling better now, because you don't want surgery. And they'd come in like, hey, how are you doing now? And I'm like, yeah, I feel so much better. Like the pain is so much better now. And they're like, oh, great. But because they were still monitoring my bloods, and then when my CRP went above 400, they were like, no, we need to do surgery.
So what helps then? You maybe say, right, that's it. I've got to have this now. And then...
Yeah. Well, I think because I didn't have a choice in the matter, I didn't really have time to make a decision about it. But later on, when I needed a proctectomy, that was almost like a choice, but kind of not. I was really unwell. I just wasn't getting better with medication. I'd tried a few at that point. And I think because of a lot of my inflammation was in the sort of rectal area, I just needed that surgery. And I wasn't living the quality of life was really bad. Like I remember just waking up, falling asleep on the sofa, being on the sofa asleep all day long, and then just going up to my bed. My mum was constantly trying to feed me because as an Asian mum, like food is her love language. So that's the only thing she had control over. So that's what she was doing. She was constantly trying to feed me like smoothies and fruit and just have a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And I was just in a constant temperature. And then once I had the surgery, I was in hospital for about a month, and I couldn't have like the plastic surgery to have the Barbie butt and stuff because there was just the quality of the skin was just so bad because, you know, I had necrosis and everything. So they had to leave that open and let it heal sort of naturally. So because of that, I still had like a nurse coming home and doing the packing and all of that. But after that whole ordeal, I was so much better in myself that that's the point when my mum was just like, you should have had this surgery years ago. Like, I don't know why I was so afraid of it, because now you're so much better. And if I had known that, then I would have encouraged you to have it sooner. And that's what it kind of comes down to, because no one is talking about it. No one can say to you, or no one is saying to you that your life will improve once you have surgery and once you have a stoma. Like, I remember even before the perforation, I lost so much weight because I was malnourished. I wasn't able to eat. Like I took a bite of a cube of cheese and I remember it affecting me so much. And then once I'd had the surgery, and I love cheese, guys. I'm not lactose intolerant either. I'm a basic girl. I love him. Cheddar. I love a cheddar.
Nothing wrong with cheddar.
But I love halloumi. I love mozzarella, you know.
I can see what we're going to get in a bit. Like.
But because of that, like, I can now eat like cheese toasties again. I could have pizza and, you know, and it was amazing. And I was just like, why was I so afraid of this when my life is so much better? Exactly. And I didn't know where to look for this information either. I didn't have anyone saying to me that, you know, it is difficult adjusting to having a stoma, but it will still be, life will still be worth living afterwards. Like, you'll realize how much your life has improved now that you have a stoma. So I'm always going to advocate for people to do what's right and best for them, but I don't want people to be scared of having a stoma just because they're worried about societal expectations and, you know, what culture and things like that. Like, those things don't matter. Like, your life is yours to live. No one can live it for you. So you need to do what's best for you.
It's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
I love that.
You saying that you were concerned that you couldn't show your scars, show your stoma to give people what you're saying is just above and beyond. So please don't think that you're not making an impact. You are. And I really hope this podcast gets to the people that need to hear it.
I hope so.
It's just incredible.
There's one thing I was going to ask was around, like, have you seen a notice or a shift in, not perception now, but is there more people that are coming forward, like, to share their stories, show bags and stuff like that you're now seeing on social media to what it was before?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's an organisation called SIA, which before used to stand for South Asian IBD Alliance.
I know this.
Yeah.
I know SIA, yes.
Yeah. And then now they've shifted to Strategic Alliance for Intercultural Advocacy. So they've kind of broadened the scope of the work that they're doing, but they are doing amazing work at the moment, and they are sort of getting patient advocates from all different cultures to speak up about their experiences. They include doctors in these conversations so that doctors can go on and have more culturally sensitive conversations with their patients. And, you know, like, they're organising events at, like, Digestive Disease Week, which happens over in the US every year. And they're doing really, really amazing work. They've published papers. So they work with clinicians and pharmaceutical companies. And it's like they're doing the behind the scenes work, which is really, really important, just as much as sort of the influencer work that you're 100%. Doing, you know, to on the surface, where you're sort of just showing how you're just showing your life as a normal person, to be honest. And that can be inspiring in itself, because for someone who's newly had a stoma, and I've had people ask me questions and stuff like, how is it with your stoma, and are you able to do this and that, and just showing that you're living a normal life, I hope is empowering for people too, to show that can be them later on, once, you know, they're healed and they're healthy and they're
What I wanted to ask you about was your book club.
Yes, 100%.
So tell us all about it. It's in your bio.
Yeah.
People will easily find it. Tell us all about it.
So my book club, it started as just almost like a passion project with me and my friends. So it's with my friends and my younger sister. So my friend from uni, Linda, she sort of got us together in a group chat and was just like, you guys are all my friends. You all love reading books. You know, why don't we make a space on the internet that's just like reviewing books? You know, I'm tired of seeing selfies and makeup and, you know, let's talk about books. And we were like, okay, great. And it started off as just like, read whatever you want. There's no pressure. Everyone kind of enjoys different genres and different things. And, you know, we'll just review it. We'll give it a rating out of 5. And that's sort of how it started. And we've been going it'll be 10 years this year.
10 years?
In September.
Wow.
I know.
Are you celebrating?
Yes, I hope so. So we haven't organised anything properly. We really need to sit down and do it, because everyone has a normal job. Like this is something we do on the side. So because of that, like everyone, like life just gets busy sometimes. But we need to definitely celebrate. And I think the very least we'll be on holiday together, us girls. But that's been amazing, because that's definitely got me through some difficult times, because I've always loved reading growing up as a child. But I think as you go into adulthood, like life gets busier and you don't always make time for things like that, which is just literally just a hobby. You're not making money from it. You're not doing it to progress your career or anything. Like, we really advocate for fictional reading. Like, non-fiction is great as well, but with fiction, I think you can learn so much from it, whereas people really underestimate the power of fiction. They think, you know, especially men, they just think like they have to read non-fiction only because, you know, if I'm going to spend my time or a few hours reading, then it has to be facts that I'm going to learn from and it's going to make me more money or, you know, whatever. But I just think there's so much to learn from fiction. You know, it teaches you empathy. It teaches you about the world. You know, even though these stories are not true, they're still based on truth. and experiences, and we love that. So yeah,
it's really resonating with me because I've literally picked up the reading mantle for the first time properly this year.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction.
Oh,
Fiction.
I love it. There you go.
And I've got, I'm going through, oh gosh, I can't remember the author, but she is an incredible author that actually focuses mainly on like female protagonists through like war events and things like that.
Oh, amazing.
And it's unreal. The book's in my bag. I'll tell you what it is. It's called, I've read The Home Front, and it's going to be made into a film. I'll find it later.
Okay,
but
definitely
genuinely completely agree with all your points. Rather than, I was like, I don't know about you if you like reading or not, but I'd pick up a book just because I was going on holiday.
Yeah.
Stand at the airport and be like, that'll do. Read that. Right, put it back down. Don't pick it up then for 6 months. So what's been like a really inspirational book for you?
So at the time, a few years ago, I lost a really close friend of mine, and I also had major surgery at the time as well, and I was in hospital for 2 months. So I think that really compounded the grief. And then I read a book called The Manual for Heartache by Kathy Rensenbrink, and it was about when she lost her brother and her process of grief. And I found that really, really powerful at the time. And I think grief is such a difficult topic to talk about. So I definitely recommend that for anyone who's lost someone who meant a lot to them, because it's something that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. So I definitely recommend that. But there's been so many great books. That's a non-fiction recommendation, but there's so many great books that I've read. I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head.
What are you reading now?
I just finished Kin, which was by Tayari Jones. So we had an event with her. She came over from the US.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have
That's
authors come over.
incredible.
Yeah, we have authors. Our next event is with Zulfa, who's coming over from, I think, Switzerland. So we're doing her launch event. And then after that, I'm not sure actually. My TBR is forever growing, so just need to pick something on there that's probably been on there for ages.
It's so lovely that you've had that focus as well, because I think when you've got a chronic illness and when you can't have the 9-to-5 job, you really need something to give your energy to and focus on that's not to do with being poorly.
Exactly.
And it gives you that escapism as well, right? Like it's someone else, it's fantasy, and like you can get so engrossed in it.
And I've always loved watching TV shows and movies. So on those days where you don't have a lot of energy, that's my go-to. I have a few comfort shows which I watch, which is like one of them is New Girl. I love that show. I think
Guilty
it's so
pleasure,
funny. Yeah, it's not even a guilty pleasure. I'm loud and proud about it. But, it's just one of those comfort things that you can just put on and you enjoy it every time. And then when I have a bit more brain power, I'll watch something like maybe Severance or something, or Shogun, or something that takes a little bit more mental energy. And then other times I can just sit in bed and read a book. And then I'll read things that are like a romance book, which I know that will make me feel good, and it doesn't take a lot of energy for me to absorb what I'm reading. And then other times I'll read something a bit bigger, which is like maybe historical, something like based in another country where you kind of have to focus a little bit more. So I adjust according to like my energy levels and how I'm feeling each day. And, I've read while I was in hospital as well. So, you just have to have other things in place so that you can just, every day, you can just adjust according to how you feel. And that way you're still enjoying life the way, like, in any way that you can, really.
Yeah, and finding the joy in it, trying to find something you get a pleasure out of that's not reminding you of the rubbish times.
Yeah, definitely. And I think books and movies and shows and stuff, it's like perfect escapism. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about reading a book on a screen?
I am all for it.
Oh!
Yeah. So although I am a purist, I love a book. I don't have a Kindle, I don't have a Kobo or anything like that. So I do like a physical book. But if you prefer to listen to audiobooks, I'd still classify that as reading, because you're still using your brain and concentrating and you're still absorbing what you need to. Yeah. And then sometimes when I'm on real low energy days, I listen to the audiobook while I'm reading. So it's almost like someone's reading it to me. Oh. And I find that makes it easier for me to actually absorb. So I'm not doing the energy of actually reading. I'm just listening, but I'm following along.
That's fantastic. Because, like if you're in hospital or you're having a procedure or whatever, I know in the past, I've brought books and I just can't bring myself to read. I haven't got the mental energy. That is such a great tip. I never would have thought of doing that.
Because sometimes you don't have the energy to read.
No.
And if I'm just listening to an audiobook, I tune out because I'm always thinking about 1,000,001 things. So then having the book there to read while I'm listening to it helps me concentrate on the words without the effort of it. So do
you find when you have an audiobook, if the person reading the narration isn't quite right, does it put you off the book entirely?
It does. It has. So there was this one book, I won't mention the book, I'll tell you afterwards. But the person who was doing the audiobook, they were doing like the different accents and stuff according to the different characters, and it just kept throwing me off and taking me out. And initially I tried to read the book. I was struggling, so I thought, okay, let me do audiobook. And then that was really just throwing me off. And then by that point, I was kind of halfway through. And then I went back to reading the book and I enjoyed it so much more. So it does make a difference. But generally, the audiobook is good. There's only been one occasion where I didn't like the narrator. But apart from that, like the narrator's normally really good.
Yeah. It's got to have a soothing voice. Like Stephen Fry or something like that. I mean, there are other people who do narrating as well, but...
So one question that a lot of followers will be wanting us to ask you is about clothing and how you dress, especially how you navigated that with 2 Stoma bags, and how, for someone that's struggling with that in your culture, how would you say they could approach it?
I think the number one thing is to feel comfortable in what you're wearing. So I think I've always been quite tomboyish growing up. So I used to wear a lot of like baggy clothes and stuff. And then once I had 2 bags, I found that really helped. But then as I started to get a bit older, I felt like I had a bit of a style crisis at some point. I was just like, when it comes to wearing cultural clothing for like celebrations and stuff, I had to figure out what works best for me, but also my body shape as well. Now I'm quite petite. I'm like 5'1", and then I'm quite top heavy as well. So I've always had to think about what I wear and what suits my body shape. And then having a stoma on top of that, like I always make sure that I maybe go tighter on the top and then it skims out at the bottom. So like A-line stuff works really well. I wear jacket clothing for like Asian wear. So it kind of flares at the abdomen and stuff, at the midriff. So things like that. I wear high-waisted, which really helps. So there is a lot of options. And I think with fashion, it's always changing. There's always like new trends and stuff. So you just adapt to like what feels good for you. Like with Asian wear, for example, saris will never be out of style. Salwar kameez will always be in fashion. So because of that, like, if something works for you, you can just stick with it. And when it comes to a sari, all you have to really update is really like the type of embroidery that's on it, the colours, the things like that, whereas the actual shape always stays the same. So I think that really helps. Like I make my petticoat that I wear really high-waisted, so it goes over my stoma bag. So then when I wrap the sari and I tuck it in, like it doesn't interfere and I can still easily change my bag if I need to and things like that. But on the days where I've been really conscious about like my output, what I'll do is just make sure I'm not having like high fiber foods maybe a few days beforehand to reduce like the bulk in my output. And then also take like an Imodium to slow down your output too. So there are ways around it for like special occasions, but I wouldn't do that on a regular basis. But if you do have an important event that you're worried about, then those are the kind of tips I'd give. Do
you have any like colours or particular garments like that gives you real confidence when I wear it? So you put it on, you're like, mate, I feel fantastic.
Recently, I've realised that I really enjoy wearing red.
Nice.
And red is a really traditional colour that you wear like on your wedding day. So I kind of always associated it with that, but I think I must have wore like a red cardigan recently and I realised that I really liked how I looked in it. And red is such a power colour.
Powerful colour.
And I was like, why do we always reserve this for like an occasion? Why don't we just wear it a bit more casually? So I'm trying to incorporate a bit more colour. Like I love black. I'm almost always in black and my friends always laugh about the fact that I'm always in black. But that again, it just makes me feel good. I feel confident when I wear black. I've always I've always worn black, but now I'm trying to incorporate a bit more color and, you know, just figuring out what suits me. And like, again, I'm in my late 30s and I'm still figuring out what suits me and what looks good and stuff. So, and it always changes with time anyway. So I think we need to let go of these preconceived notions that we can only dress in one type of way and, you know, just figure out what works for you.
I have to be honest, even with polka dots is on trend at the moment. There you go. I only know that because my wife is like telling me this and showing me all the outfits she's buying. She's like, and when we go on holiday, I need to get all the polka dots. I was like, oh, yeah, sure.
Fabulous.
And I red will be in season this season as well. So it's all good.
I don't, because I do try to not do overconsumption and stuff like that. So I try not to follow trends in that respect. And I think things like if you buy good quality clothes or like natural fibers and stuff, you know that stuff will last you as well. And because you're not following the trend cycles, again, you don't have to worry so much. So if you find a piece that you love, it's something that you can always wear and it will, you know that it will always make you feel good. And then you like, if there's a particular style that you like, then look for those things when you're going shopping and stuff. Because it's just about wearing what makes you feel good, essentially.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
So true. And all like fashion just goes in cycles anyway.
Exactly.
Like half the stuff either is like will be baggy or stuff, and then next year it will be, you know. Do you remember when like skinny jeans were in? Do you remember when all that was happening?
Oh, I just try to avoid all that. I can't keep up. It changes too much.
I was wearing skinny jeans and I was like, oh my God, now the thought of high-waisted skinny jeans over my stoma, I was like, oh, that sounds like hell.
No.
Yeah.
We asked you to bring a photo in that meant something to you. So can you share that with us?
Yes, of course. So this is my picture.
Wearing red, love it.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose?
This is when I realised that, I enjoy wearing red, actually.
So what's happening in this
So
photo?
this was this year in the beginning of May. So I was invited to Chicago by Saya to attend their event that was a round table to discuss with pharmaceutical companies and healthcare professionals and clinicians about my experiences with just IBD, really. And what I particularly spoke about is like sex in IBD, and like that's something that people don't really talk about. And I think especially as a Muslim or anyone who maybe doesn't practice sex before marriage, I think that can be quite a daunting experience. So it was just about talking about that really, and how that conversation went when I discussed it with my doctor and what they could do better and things like that. Because I think the advice at the time that I was given was like, go and have sex and find out, because I wasn't sure if I could.
That was the advice.
That was the advice. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So what would you like to, like, obviously, you know, you've gone there to discuss those points. Like, what would you want doctors to be having as a conversation with you?
So I think the reason why it was a worry of mine was because I also had fistulizing Crohn's as well, and I had genital Crohn's. So because it was something that affected that area of my body, I wasn't sure whether or not I could have sex, for example. And when I was thinking about relationships, and I didn't know where to go to ask that question, so naturally my first point of call was my my doctor, and then that was the sort of advice I was given, and naturally it wasn't very helpful advice. I know, and I think what I would have wanted was just, you know, everybody's different. You can't 100% say that, yes, you can, no, you can't. But I think what would have been nice at the time was for just someone to be a bit reassuring to say, I don't know for sure, but people in a similar position to you are able to have normal, healthy sex life. And, you know, we hope that will be the same case for you. And then once you do experience that, and if that's not the case, then please come back, and then maybe we'll be able to help you. But, you know, until you don't try, you won't know yourself. And I think that just simply that, and even if it was I'm not sure, but here's how I can help you, and maybe signposting me to something on Crohn's and Colitis' website or something like that. You know, there are resources out there. That would have been really helpful, but just very generic advice of like, go and have sex and find out, you know?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like things that people don't think about because, again, I'm Muslim. I'm from a Pakistani Kashmiri background. We don't do things like that. And I think that's why it's important to talk about cultural, you know, your cultural experiences, because maybe like a white doctor who's never had to think about, you know, my family input in my healthcare, for example, and the impact that your family has on you in a positive and for other people maybe a negative way as well. Whereas like they can just say, well, this is the advice that we give you and we expect you to follow it. But for somebody else, it'd be like, no, but I need to talk to my family about this. I need to see what they think because I'm not sure and I want their advice. And for them, it may be really strange because it's like, but it's your life, it's your body. You should be making the decisions. But in a lot of cultures, like your family is really important and you do a lot of shared decision making. So it's just like, talking about those kind of things to help broaden people's horizons and make them approach things a bit differently, a bit more sensitively, I think is really important. So this was really empowering moment for me. I think it was my first time in the US as well. So that was an experience. I traveled by myself, which I've never done before. And, you know, things like that, like I mentioned, like I'm in my late 30s. So for somebody else, like solo traveling is so, people do it once they leave college and they like backpack for, you know, half a year or whatever it is. And exactly.
Gonna go find myself.
I went to India and, you know.
I'd love to do that.
I went to Thailand.
Surely we could, I'm in my late 30s too. Why can't we do that now?
Exactly.
And of course you can.
For some people.
Yeah, I mean...
leave the family and I got...
Not leave the family. I mean,
see you guys, I'm going to find myself for a month.
See you later.
To the food shop and it'll be fine.
I found myself in the middle aisle of Aldi. Oh, here I am. No, but I know some people go like, especially like 30s or so actually, like, well, Instagram and social media aside, I see more people now going, I'm doing the corporate jobs, I've climbed the ladder, is this it? Right, I'm leaving. Career switches, I'm now going to go do it. Because most people, you're right, will either do it straight out of college, university, where they haven't got a job, or they get to retirement and then they spend their time in retirement.
And even now, like I've kind of reconnected with some of my like university friends and they kind of like, oh, I wish I could give up working. I wish I could just have that sort of easy, soft life and things like that. And, you know, I'm like, I wake up at like 11, 12 o'clock. You know, I can just chill. And they're like, oh, that sounds great. And at the time I used to feel really embarrassed about it, that I don't have that routine and I'm not going to work and I'm not making money. But now when I see people who are my age who are like wishing that they maybe aside from the illness side of things, but they're wishing that they didn't have to work and have these, you know, stressful careers and stuff, and they want to be able to just relax and wake up when they want and things like that. I just think, oh, maybe life isn't so bad. Like, it's just, it always changes, doesn't it?
It's your perspective as well, right?
Exactly.
And everyone has their own perspective and everyone will put their own like rose-tinted glasses on. Because I'm sure if people have said that to you and you're like, I'm really unwell, I'm suffering, like you don't want this. Like, they just see what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's just, you have this like notion of what life is supposed to be like, and then when you have an illness and then when you have surgery and things don't turn out the way that you expected them to, like it can be quite a difficult pill to swallow. But then a few years later, when you are in remission or when you are now used to your bag and changing your bag, and it takes me 2 minutes. I could change my bag with my eyes closed, but for someone who's newly had surgery, like it's the most daunting thing in the world. But it just goes to show how time does make a difference, you know, and things do get better.
And I mean, our last question, you've just answered it, to be honest. You've covered, God, I don't think we've had someone who's covered so much in such a short
we've also
space of
learned
time.
so much as well. There's so many things that I had no idea about.
I mean, we always ask this to end the episode, but what advice, gosh, you've given so much, would you give to someone newly adjusting to stoma life?
Yes, I think I just want to reiterate that just be patient with yourself. Don't expect yourself to bounce back straight away. Like you have had major surgery, you know, give yourself at least 6 months before you go back to the gym or you go back to doing those active things that you might have done before. And I think to also just remind yourself that life might be different now, but that doesn't mean to say it's worse. You know, it might be different for you and you're new. It will be a new normal for you, but it will become normal eventually as well. And just find your own community. If you don't see people in your real life who can relate to you, like that's the amazing part of social media, where now you can go on Instagram, you can go on TikTok, you can search stoma, you can search colostomy, ileostomy, you can, you know, and you will find people who are in similar situations to yourself, and you can build your own community, follow them, interact with them, DM them, you know, you can have that friendship from halfway across the world, and it will make you feel better. So even if people in your real life don't understand what you're going through, you'll find your own community who can.
So true.
What a lush way to finish it.
I know.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, I really hope that this episode gets the spotlight it deserves.
100%.
It's been such a pleasure, and thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you so much for having me. You're amazing hosts, and you've just made it so easy to just talk, really. Fab questions, and
Thank you.
I've loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.